stay tuned until the very end of this video, because at the end, I will share my own perspective on this story. And I promise you, it may completely change the way you look at Dua Lipa, her artistic choices, and even her music itself. What I'm about to reveal might genuinely shock you. But before we get there, let's dive into one of the most fascinating conversations about creativity, literature, and the hidden layers behind one of the world's most famous pop stars. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe right now and hit that like button, because we have so many intriguing stories like this one coming your way, and you won't want to miss a single update. Dua Lipa, the global superstar whose music fills stadiums, dominates radio playlists, and sets TikTok trends, has revealed a side of herself that fans rarely get to see. We know her as a singer, a performer, a fashion icon, and even as a cultural trendsetter who carefully curates her own editorial platform. But now we are beginning to see the deeper foundation of her creativity. And it's not what you might expect. At the core of her artistry, Dua Lipa credits literature. Yes, books, those seemingly quiet, almost ordinary objects, have played a powerful role in shaping the pop phenomenon that the world knows today. And she opened up about this in a setting that could not have been more symbolic: the New York Public Library, one of the most iconic spaces of knowledge and storytelling in the entire world. On September 15th, Dua Lipa sat down for a live recording of her Service 95 book club video podcast, in front of an audience that was eager not only to see their idol, but also to hear her speak about something more personal, something less polished by the machinery of the music industry. Sitting across from her was the acclaimed author David Saleh, whose Booker Prize-nominated novel Flesh has been chosen as the October selection for her book club. It was an atmosphere charged with curiosity, not a concert, not a red carpet premiere, but a gathering centered around words, imagination, and the quieter, more intellectual side of a pop star who has built her empire on rhythm and performance. When Spotify's chief public affairs officer Dusty Jenkins asked Dua Lipa about the single book that had most influenced her craft as a songwriter, the answer was not random, nor was it chosen for its glamour. She immediately named Patti Smith's memoir, Just Kids, and this revelation is fascinating because Just Kids is not simply a book. It is a testament, a cultural artifact, and a chronicle of a particular moment in history, the 1960s and 1970s, when creativity in New York City was exploding in the most unpredictable and rebellious ways. For those unfamiliar, Patti Smith, often called the punk poet laureate, shaped the landscape of rock and poetry with her raw voice, uncompromising art, and fearless spirit. In Just Kids, she documents her friendship with photographer Robert Mapplethorpe, painting a vivid picture of artistic struggle, bohemian lifestyle, and the sacrifices that come with pursuing authenticity. For Dua Lipa to call this book her greatest influence is to position herself not merely as a consumer of pop culture, but as an artist aware of history, aware of legacy, and aware of the responsibility of channeling truth through art. She described it as such an incredible book and such a time capsule of creativity when it was really emerging, especially during that time in the 60s, 70s. But that was not all. As the conversation unfolded, Dua revealed more about her reading life, and it was filled with unexpected details. She credited Lemony Snicket's darkly comedic children's series, A Series of Unfortunate Events, as an early favorite, alongside the works of British authors Mallory Blackman and Jacqueline Wilson. These choices reveal something profound. As a child, Dua was not merely entertained by bright and cheerful tales. She was drawn to complex narratives, sometimes tragic, sometimes unsettling, often thought-provoking. This appetite for layered storytelling foreshadowed the artist she would become, one who creates pop songs that, beneath their catchy beats, often explore themes of heartbreak, resilience, and self-discovery. Her memories of weekends with her mother, also opened a window into the quiet rituals that shaped her identity. She recalled how, on weekends, her mom would either take her to the park or to the bookshop. There was one particular store on Finchley Road in London, which, at the time, was simply called Books. Today, it is a Waterstones, but back then, it was a treasure chest of imagination. While her mother sat with a book of her own, young Dua would lose herself completely in the children's section, reading everything she could get her hands on. It wasn't about assignments, it wasn't about obligation. It was about curiosity, escape, and passion. She would spend the entire day there, absorbed in stories, and she admits that from that point forward, she simply fell in love with books. They became her escape, her private world, and in many ways, the blueprint for the artistic lens through which she now sees the world. This love of books is not just a personal hobby for her anymore. It has grown into something much larger, a movement, a platform, and a call to action. Through her editorial platform Service 95, Dua Lipa launched the book club in 2023, carefully curating selections that represent diverse global voices. She is not choosing mainstream, expected titles. Instead, she's elevating fiction, memoirs, and manifestos that tell powerful, sometimes difficult stories. Stories that expand the reader's perspective and challenge their understanding of identity, culture, and the human condition. Her October pick, Soleil's Flesh, is a coming-of-age story that examines the subtle ways in which people both change and remain the same. It is not a lightweight choice, nor a commercial one. It is demanding, complex, and exactly the kind of book that can shape a thoughtful reader. And what makes this especially significant is that Dua Lipa is speaking directly to a generation that, as she acknowledges, does not read enough. We don't have enough younger readers, and we need to have more of them, she stated firmly during the podcast recording. Her words carried a sense of urgency, because in a time when attention spans are shrinking, when social media has trained us to consume information in seconds rather than hours, and when the publishing industry struggles to capture the youth market, here is a pop star using her influence not to sell perfume, not to market fast fashion, but to advocate for literature. She wants to build readers, and in doing so, she wants to build thinkers. But let's pause for a moment and consider the bigger picture. Dua Lipa is 30 years old. She has already won Grammy Awards, headlined festivals, and become a symbol of modern pop culture. And yet, when given the platform, she is not content to remain in the lane of music alone. She is building a cultural empire. Service 95 is not just about books. It is about voices, perspectives, and shaping discourse. By positioning herself alongside authors like Patti Smith and David Soleil, Dua is not only borrowing their credibility, she is contributing to a larger narrative, one in which musicians and authors, performers and intellectuals, work side by side to shape how we understand the world around us. And the setting of this revelation matters as well. The New York Public Library is more than a backdrop. It is a symbol. For generations, it has stood as a temple of knowledge in the heart of one of the world's most vibrant cities. By choosing this space, Dua was deliberately situating her conversation about creativity in a place where books are sacred, where stories are preserved, and where ideas have been exchanged for over a century. It sends a message that pop stardom and intellectual curiosity are not separate worlds. They can coexist. As the conversation with Soleil unfolded, it became clear that she was not merely promoting a brand or checking off a publicity box. She was sincere. She was animated. She was passionate. She was a reader talking to another reader, not a celebrity reading from a script. And that authenticity is rare. Now, imagine this for a moment. Think of the countless young fans who follow Dua Lipa for her music, for her fashion, for her performances. Many of them may not have considered picking up a book in years. And yet, by watching her speak with such genuine love for literature, some of them may walk into a bookstore or log onto an e-reader app and decide to try something new. This ripple effect could be enormous, because culture does not only move through institutions or governments. It often moves through individuals with influence, individuals who model behaviors and make them appealing. If Dua Lipa can make reading cool again, that is no small achievement. And so, we find ourselves at a crossroads in this story. On one side, Dua Lipa, the global pop icon whose beats dominate dance floors worldwide. On the other side, Dua Lipa, the thoughtful reader, the advocate for literature, the woman who sees books not as a luxury, but as a necessity. These two sides are not in conflict. They are intertwined. And it is this duality that makes her more than just a singer. It makes her an artist in the fullest sense of the word. Remember, stay with me until the very end of this video, because in just a little while, I will share my own interpretation of what all of this really means, and why Dua Lipa's love of literature might carry a deeper significance than anyone realizes. What I am going to tell you could completely change how you view not only her music, but also the role that artists like her play in shaping the future of culture. But for now, let's continue peeling back the layers of this extraordinary story. And now, as promised, here comes my own perspective on this story. And I want you to really think about what I'm about to say, because it goes far beyond one celebrity sharing her favorite book. It is about the future of culture, the way artists position themselves, and the choices that define them not only as entertainers, but as leaders of thought. Dua Lipa is not the first pop star to talk about books, and she won't be the last. But the way she has done it is what sets her apart. She isn't simply dropping a casual reference to make herself look sophisticated. She isn't quoting literature for the sake of appearing intellectual in an interview. She has created an actual book club. She has built an entire platform around it. And she has opened the door to young readers who might otherwise never have picked up a novel. That is a very intentional act. That is cultural work. And when you consider her age, her fame, and the influence she has, you realize that this is not just a side project. This is a statement. Think about the time we live in. Attention spans are collapsing. We are constantly bombarded with images, short videos, and instant gratification. Reading, in many ways, feels like a lost art. And yet, here is one of the biggest stars of our time saying, no, reading matters. Stories matter. Books matter. This is not just nostalgia. It's resistance. It's a refusal to let an entire generation grow up without the depth that literature provides. In a way, Dua Lipa is not only entertaining her fans, she is educating them. She is planting seeds that could grow into something much bigger than a chart-topping single. Her choice of Patti Smith's Just Kids as her greatest influence is telling. She could have chosen a glamorous, obvious, commercial book. Instead, she chose a memoir about struggle, creativity, and the cost of authenticity. She aligned herself with a legacy of raw artistry, of fearlessness, of breaking boundaries. That was not a marketing move. That was a declaration of values. And those values matter, because they show us that beneath the pop gloss, Dua Lipa sees herself as part of a continuum of artists who don't just want to entertain, they want to transform. And let's not overlook the symbolic weight of her childhood story, spending weekends in a bookshop with her mother. That image, a young girl surrounded by shelves, escaping into stories, is the foundation of everything she has become. It tells us that even the most glamorous careers, even the brightest stages, often grow out of the simplest, quietest moments. And maybe that's the point. Maybe she is reminding her audience that greatness doesn't always begin with a spotlight. Sometimes it begins with a book in your hands and a mind that refuses to stop asking questions. But here is the shocking part. The truth is, what Dua Lipa is doing may be far more revolutionary than it seems at first glance. Yes, she is a pop star. Yes, she is a celebrity. But in a world where influencers push fast fashion, unrealistic beauty standards, or endless consumer products, she is pushing literature. She is normalizing intellectual curiosity. She is using her fame to redirect attention toward voices that might otherwise remain unheard. And if enough young people follow her lead, if enough of them pick up a book because Dua Lipa told them to, then we are talking about a cultural shift that could echo for years. This is not just about Dua Lipa anymore. This is about what artists bow to the world once they reach a certain level of fame. Do they cash in, or do they give back? Do they stay shallow, or do they dare to go deep? Dua Lipa has chosen to go deep. And in my opinion, that is exactly what separates an entertainer from an artist. An entertainer gives you 3 minutes of joy. An artist gives you something that lingers, something that shapes you, something that challenges you. So here is my final thought. If you only see Dua Lipa as a pop singer, you are missing the bigger picture. What she is doing with her book club, with her reading advocacy, with her choices of literature is an extension of her artistry. It is proof that music and books, rhythm and words, performance and reflection all belong to the same creative universe. She is building bridges between them, and maybe, just maybe, this is what the future of global stardom looks like. Not shallow spectacle, but meaningful cultural leadership. And that, to me, is the most powerful and surprising thing about this entire story.